welcome back to yet another discussion with one Indian student in France. Her name is Swati, and I would rather ask Swati to introduce herself. So, Swati, why don't you go ahead and talk about yourself to the audience today?
Okay, thank you, Prayag. Hi, this is Swati. I'm currently studying International MBA at EMLYON Business School, and I was a software engineer back in 2019 in India, and now I'm pursuing my dream here in France.
All right, perfect.
Oh,
You said you're a software engineer. Well, that's a very typical profile for all the Indian students. I was an engineer myself. So most of the people, it's a question which we didn't prepare actually, but since you mentioned, so I'm going to ask it for the sake of viewers. So the question is, why do you think most of the engineers actually go for MBA? And you are an exception because you actually went abroad. Most of the Indians, they go for MBA in India. So why do you think is this phenomena?
I don't represent all of the engineers, but I'll try to be as honest in my answer as possible. So for me, if I had to give one word to that answer, that would be change.
Right.
And growth, also growth, I believe, but mostly I feel for myself it was change. And I think we as engineers were very practical, very logical in our work, but somehow in parts of us we have certain dilemma as to how do we progress in life and how do we get to the next step in our life and maybe make a difference. We all want to make a difference in the world, but I guess the next way is to either change your profession or maybe go ahead in whatever you want to go.
Right. No, it is. No, it's absolutely correct because it is indeed a very subjective answer. Varies from person to person. So just wanted to have your opinion. All right. So let's get to the serious stuff. I have some questions on my screen for you. And the first question is, why France? I mean, out of all the countries, US, UK, Canada, why France?
For me personally, I feel, though I did also apply to UK in general, but France was always part of the wish list because I feel France, from the outside, it looks like a very diverse country. It has a very rich historical history and the culture itself. And added to that, I think it's the most important thing for me was the business culture in France, especially Lyon, because it is an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So for a person who really want to start a new business or want to learn new businesses, especially in an international domain, it's a great country to live in and experience those the diversity in work as well as the people itself.
Right. Completely agree with you. All right. So the second question is, when you already decided that you wanted to study in France, you would have applied to multiple schools. You already mentioned you applied to some British schools as well. So how many schools did you consider and how was the application process? Just take us through.
Initially, I was very confused about applying to which schools and what profiles, but ultimately I narrowed it down to 3 schools, 2 of which were British schools and 1 was a UK. But again, I applied to another French school. So all in all, I applied to 4 schools in general. And I would say for the whole application process, for me, it was I wouldn't be lying if I wouldn't say that I was very overwhelmed in the beginning because I had no idea where to start, how to continue, or what to do. So basically, I had to take all help from the advisory team because from the very beginning, I remember I was going through my mails today itself. So from the very beginning of the application process, I was sent a complete list of things that I need to get prepared for my application, and which were, as I guess everybody in the audience would know as well, that it's resume, your SOPs, your LORs, and be prepared for the interviews, the questions, the words that you need to be precise about in those applications. Right. So for me, because I got the list very from the very beginning, it was very easy for me to start working on them individually, and not only that, I think for me it also helped my case, because even though I had idea about how to write it and what to put on it, but I was not sure whether it was up to the mark, up to the standards of those colleges, because even though those are international colleges, each of them had their own standard, own principles, own values, and how you prepare your application depends a lot on those criteria as well. So in that regard, again, I was going through the mails, and there were like multiple back and forth between me and the advisory team, and each and every detail, even though it was a long process, and I would say it is supposed to be a long process, because you want ultimately that your application should be the best you can provide, I guess. We're not comparing to other applications, but the best that you can represent yourself to those schools, and which is what really we were trying to do. And I have to give full credit to advisory team, because even though I really rambled on some really different things, but we could narrow it down to very, I think, meaningful applications, I guess.
Absolutely. One interesting question is, and this is very important for Indian students watching this discussion, is when you're applying to a school of repute of EMLYON, which is one of the best business schools, among the top 3, top 4 business schools in France, among the top 100 in Europe, how do you actually look at the interview process? Because many people do get, you use the word overwhelmed. So many Indian students, they get overwhelmed with the fact that, what would happen at the interview stage. All right, sometimes they, agreed to the fact that they can go to somebody and get their SOPs done or LORs done. But what about the interview process? How was your interview process? Was it easy? Was it tough? Talk about it in a bit, please.
That's a very interesting question, because what I left in the question for application is, no matter who writes the application, how you write it, the main focus of your application should be your passion, because ultimately that is what is based on. And for me, when you go to an interview, for example, interview is a stage where you cannot fake anything. I mean, you have to be very good actors to be faking it. But for me, myself, I think if you really believe in what you want to achieve, then that really should, that is the first step that should come forth in your interview. And for me, for example, when I was applying to EMLYON, we had a very digital interview, and it was a very structured process in which we had many questions, and each had a time frame of some time to think about the questions, and then you have to answer it within a stipulated time frame, like 1 minute or 2 minutes or so. Was it a bit challenging? I guess I think it was a bit challenging for me, because I'm the kind of person who tends to speak a lot, but to concise my point in some in a time frame, it was difficult. But I would definitely say, for an advice when you go to an interview, is definitely think about what you would really like to give out in those interviews. And also, not only that, very important point for me as well was not to be on a generic level, but because there are some questions which would really ask you to dig deeper into your profession, in your work ethics, and what values you carry to the school. And they would really ask you to give examples of those work ethics. So it is very important for you to really focus on what aspects of your work and what specific aspects that you want to bring forth in those interviews. And I think that's the key point. They really they don't want to read your resume, they want to know the real you. So that's a difficult part, where you have to let go of the let go of the persona and be the real person, I think, in those interviews.
Completely agreed. So now you have taken your interview and everything is done. You received the offer letter. Congratulations, Swati. You have the admit. Everything is done. You take the flight to land in France. How's your first experience? Many people say culture shock. Was there any culture shock when you landed in France? Number one. Number two, how was your entire college experience? I believe you're still in college because you recently flew, but how has been your experience until now? So, culture shock and experience.
Well, I have a very funny story for that
Yeah.
because when I first landed in Paris, I missed my flight to Lyon, and I was in Paris airport for about 8 hours.
Wow.
Was it shocking? Yes, because that was the first time in my life that I missed a flight. But I guess that would be the word for my France experience till now. Unexpected, but good. I guess it was really good. I mean, culture shock. I wouldn't really call it a culture shock for me because in my mind, because having heard so many interviews, so many like what do you call them, advices and lessons are not
Yeah.
lessons. I'm missing the word. Sorry. So many advices, I would say. I'll
Yeah.
go to
No
advices.
worries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. So many advices from people who have already been to France, and my friends who had already landed in France. So I was. I was very well aware of the process that I was going to go through, even during the immigration, for example. But for me, what was I was literally, it was like, for me, I was already ready for the worst when going to France. So what was surprising was it was not the worst, actually. So the very first thing that I remember was when I first came to my hostel here in Lyon. The driver, the taxi driver, actually, we went around Italy for a while, and we were a little bit lost, but ultimately ended up in the right place. But he actually refused to take the entire amount because he told that it was his fault that we were stuck. So he was like, "No, I refuse, because you go and enjoy. I'll take half of the price, and please go and enjoy, and welcome to France." And I think that's what sums up my experience till now in France. I always expected the worst from French people, to be snobbish or something, or like rude. But surprisingly, everybody has been quite amazing, and maybe I'm lucky in that regard. But everybody has been quite amazing, and the entire culture has been very eye-opening. That how we should not hold on to stereotypes in general. So it's a very good lesson for me till now.
No, Swati, I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation with you because when I talk to most of the students, they, I mean, I enjoy all the conversations, but the difference between other conversations and this conversation today with you is that we are going to the mystical part of France, the good things about France, because as you already mentioned, we all have perceptions about foreign nationals. They would be, especially French, they're snobbish, they're rude. And I have nothing against the French people. In fact, I stayed there for a long period of time. But it's very good to hear from somebody like you who has just landed in France and has such a positive outlook and perspective about not just the country but the people and the culture. So I'm very, very happy for you and just wanted to congratulate you on that. So keep enjoying that. Yeah, so the second question is, you have reached France, you have entered the college, but as you mentioned, when you moved to your accommodations, how's your accommodation process for Indian students? Let's say 5 people are watching this video right now and they want to be at your school next year. What tips would you give to them for accommodation?
That's a good question, because I have a lot to say on this topic. First and foremost is don't be scared of living anywhere. For example, I know I was one of them who, in the very beginning, I was really against the idea of staying in Italy. I was very set on staying in Lyon and enjoying the life in Lyon. So the very first thing I did for accommodation, for example, was I was looking for apartments in Lyon, and was going through each and every website possible to find a place. But what I discovered in that regard was I was sending mails to a lot of people in and around Lyon, and they were showing great apartments and great prices. But I discovered that there was a scam. That's a huge scam, because for me it was very funny, because I had 4 applications, 4 mails, and all 4 of them had similar stories, had real similar stories. I was like, it's too much of a coincidence. I mean, it sounds too good to be true. So I then and there I decided that for my own sake, like for me to feel better about leaving somewhere, or at least trying to live in Lyon or whatever, I should really start with, if I'm going from India, for example, I would really start to maybe start in the very beginning to live in a student's accommodation. In that way, I'd be very assured that it's not a scam, that I will really have a place when I fly to France. And after I'm here in France, maybe I can look for a location, look for an apartment myself in Lyon or whatever area that I want to live in. And regarding the accommodation here in students' accommodation, so I opted for a students' accommodation here near my college, EMLYON, here at Écully. It's the Le Galion. So here we have a lot of not a lot of offerings. It has studio and room apartments as well. So for me, the whole process was a bit, I would say, a little bit hassling, because as a person who has always lived in India, it's not so complicated. But here in France, you have to have certain documents ready to be accepted into the accommodations. You need to have your insurances. You need to sign the papers, and the whole process it takes a little bit longer time. But once it's done, the good thing is you can, even though for me at least, even though I've signed it for my lease for May, my manager tells me I can live here forever if I want, and so that's not a problem. And I guess I like the accommodation, and the one thing which can be good about staying in a student's accommodation is you don't have to feel like an adult. You still like to feel like a student. And I guess another advice for people looking for accommodation would be, because I have friends who are living in Lyon, and the very first challenges that they faced were the electricity, the gas lines, and French bureaucracy is very famous for being late, and so the first advice would be to actually get in contact with a French person, or to make a French friend who can actually put in your request and help you in those applications. Because if you don't speak French, if you don't communicate in French, then that would be extremely difficult for you, on top of the already slow bureaucracy, to get your applications in. So so for the first thing would be to get a bank account, for example, to find a French person who can communicate with you on behalf of you with the electricity board and the gas lines, so that you have the basic amenities when you get to the accommodation. And other than that, I would say you shouldn't have much of a problem. If your transport cards are ready, if you Lyon is not a very complex city to understand and live in. It's actually quite simple once you get used to it. And I think that's it. I think I know it does too much rambling. Sorry.
No, absolutely perfect. I mean, it's a bliss to hear from you about your experiences, and I'm sure this is going to be very helpful for our audience. Next question is something very important for all the Indian students, and I'm sure it is very important for you as well. When we go abroad, we go with this mindset that we want to work abroad as well. right? And especially in France, the language plays a very, very important role. I mean, and I think it plays a very important role in every country. If we want to work in India, and if we don't speak
Yes.
English, then we are going for probably a wild goose chase. So if you don't learn French, so what was about your experience? I believe you learned French, and so first of all, tell us what was your level of French before going to France. Number one. Number two, how was your experience with the French people when you were going out of the campus to do some shopping, grocery shopping? Were you able to communicate? Was that French enough or not? And what about the jobs? Are you already in the process of hunting jobs or internships? And is language playing a major role there?
Wow, that's a very important question and a very complex question to answer. When I first landed in France, I had already completed my A1 and I was going through my A2. So currently now I have completed my A2 through a class that was provided by the college. But I have to say, the very first experience of language issue that I had was in a grocery line here in Lyon, and it was funny because the person I had not realized that I had cut into the line, but the person behind me was actually telling me to go behind because he was already in the line. But I couldn't understand the person because I didn't understand enough French at that point. So that was my very first experience of not knowing French. So I would say I think this is enough evidence for everybody to know that French is really required for you to well, you can survive without French. You can survive, but can you live nicely without French? Probably not. If you want to have a good communication, good network here in France, and really like to experience that international flair that France brings in, then I think language really plays an important role, like anywhere in the world, like you said. And especially when it comes to job searches here in France, French is the way to go. Even for the CVs, you cannot have an English CV, you have to have a French CV. And the whole style of CVs and resumes here in France is totally different from an international way. Like, for example, you need to have a photograph here in France, which is not really required for an international CV. And the French, I think, that is needed for you to get a job here is a minimum of B1. So it is very important to really learn, not only to know how to write French, more importantly, you should know how to communicate in French, because that is the difficult part and that is the fun part as well. I mean, the very good thing about the people here in France, at least for me, is people are very encouraging, even when you speak horrible French and you're butchering the language, but they are always encouraging and correcting you politely, rudely, whatever, but they are always correcting you and always helping you to better your language, even when you don't really understand the so many exceptions here in French language. But I have to say the whole experience of speaking French has been really interesting and really fun, and also for the job searches, for example, even when I have sorry, I'm rambling again. So here in EMLYON, we have our career coaches who are helping us to prepare our resumes, our profiles for the job that we really want to apply for. Right. So the very first thing that the counselor told me was, when I told that I was a student from the technological background, I was a software engineer. So I asked the question that is French really required for a technological background? Because I would think it is an international company and we could go ahead without knowing French. So the answer was yes and no. Why? Yes, because okay, maybe it's an international organization. You may need to know the language of Java, but may not need to know the language of French. But if you really want to build a team and work in a team here in France, it is essential, almost essential to know French as a language, because people may speak English, but they won't really bond in English. They have to bond in French. And yes, and the very interesting thing about applying for jobs here in France is they take at least 3 months before you get a confirmation on your job. So you need to apply from the very beginning into different jobs, and there could be various rejections because of your language as a barrier. And and a very interesting thing about France is, for example, if you are coming from a background of technology, in my case, and if you want to change your industry, for example, they would really prefer if you had some kind of a internship experience, or even small job experience in the new industry before venturing into the industry as a full-time employee. Right. So it is very important to note that if you are looking for an industry change, then and you want to work in France, then it would be really good to start with the internship experience rather than going to a full-time job, because that would count majorly in your favor when the company is trying to analyze whether you deserve a position or not. And that is, I think, a very key factor, especially for people who are coming to do masters or MBA and want to change their industry. Then I think that's a key factor, knowing that. Also, yes, as I already mentioned, French as a language is must. A great resume, according to the French resume, which is interesting, that no matter how many years of experience you have, it is best to have a one-page resume here in France. So, which can be difficult for me, because for me as well, for other people, because we are ramblers, even in our resumes. So that's a key factor as well. And apply as soon as possible, as many jobs as possible, because you will get rejections for a while, but soon you may stumble onto something which could work for you, which could work in your favor, actually. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you. Applying for jobs in a foreign country is pretty similar to, playing basketball and, hitting the ball, dunking the ball in the basket. It is going to take a lot of shots, but one time it is going to be very successful, and you are going to definitely have a job that you always wanted to. But I and my entire team wants to wish you the best for your job search, and we really hope you get a wonderful job and a wonderful career ahead in France. Before moving ahead, we just have one question left, but this question has come from a student on our Instagram, and this question is basically, I'm going to read it for you. What courses or skills out of academic they did and masters for MBA in top school? So I'll frame the question for you. Question is basically, what courses or a skill do you think are probably taught in your MBA program, and you consider they are the best taught compared to an Indian program?
Interesting. Interesting question. I haven't done an MBA in India, but I have. But if I have to compare the type of the style of studying here in France and in India, the first major one would be the way the exams are conducted. I don't know. For me, it was very interesting, because we are very much used to. In India, at least in the Indian education system, we are very much used to studying for the final exam, the main exam. But here, the interesting thing is the exams are conducted along with the courses. So those are not as major as your board exams maybe, but here the exams are more dependent on the immediate knowledge that you gather from the courses, and it is expected that you remember those experience or the teachings in your classrooms and your group activities that you perform, and to really help you shine in those exams. So it is, I would say it is less theoretical, more practical in its approach. And also, I think if I'm comparing to some of the courses here, we had some really interesting courses, few of the very interesting courses. So one of them is, I would say, a course called Design Thinking.
Yeah.
So I think it is very important when you start a master's program is you're not only changing your work or what you will work, but also how you think about things in general. So I think that is a very interesting key factor here. And I think France in general, the whole mindset is about changing the way you think, being more disruptive in your thinking, being more open in your thinking, and more entrepreneurial. Because the more disruptive you, I don't know if I'm rambling. I think I'm rambling too much.
No.
I mean,
It's
makes
absolutely
sense.
fine. Absolutely clear.
Okay, no, I thought I was really rambling. Okay, so I'll continue from that part.
Yeah.
So yes, so for the French way of thinking, I think what I have been taught in the school till now has been that you need to question the existing practices, for example, and you need to find disruptive ways of changing the standards, and also to find a more structured way, more innovative, open way of actually going to a new place. Instead of just forcing things to happen, you need to be more open in your ideas, more open in your communication, and more open in the ways you try to bring about a change. So I think I would say it is less theoretical, more practical, and then I would also bring into focus the number of group assignments we had to do. Not only group assignments, we had many interviews which we had to do with many people from all over the world. So the whole process of interviewing, how you interview a person and how you actually communicate with a person, is very important and very interesting, because through this design thinking and through disruptive futures, you tend to change the way you communicate with other people, and tend to understand other people's perspective when you're working, or when you're in a professional environment, or personal in that regard as well. Yeah.
All right.
I was very, very abstract in that answer.
No,
Sorry.
but I think you were very detailed, and this is the kind of answer we were looking for, probably, because students who are watching you right now, they would definitely want to know why an international MBA at EMLYON or in France is better than an Indian MBA. And I think you gave very clear answers: the internships and the design thinking, and you talked about exams, which was very interesting. So thank you for that. We won't keep you for long, so probably some tips or suggestions for the viewers. There would be many students who might want to be like you, or in your shoes. They would want to study at top business schools in France, or probably anywhere across the globe. What is their suggestion to all these young girls and boys in India who are probably working with the companies like TCS or Infosys? I'm talking about these companies because you were a software engineer yourself. So what is your advice to these young software engineers in their early experience bracket? What is your suggestion?
My suggestion would be, don't be sad. keep it up. I mean, just keep focus on your applications. Apply as soon as possible. I was very late when I was applying, but advice would be apply as soon as possible to have the choices that you can have. If you want to go to France, if you want to apply to France, then start learning French as soon as you can, and practice as much as you can. Like Prayag used to say to us all the time. Other advices. If they're working, okay. Other advices would be try to take if you're working in a software company, then try to take as much as leadership positions as you can, leadership stances as you can, because that is not only good for your resume but also good for yourself, because that will really help you to see if you can really be a leader. Because if you're going to be a master's, if you're going to for higher education, then being a leader is a very defining position that you're taught to think like a leader, be like a leader. So if you can experience, if you can show some instances of leadership in your current work area, that would really focus well during your application, in your interview process, in the entire process that you may find before you join in college. And also be very open. I think that is a very important factor. I think we tend to focus so much on the application that we forget to bring the personality changes that we need to do.
Sure.
So for me, it will be like always be open. Always be open to change. Don't be scared of the change. I think change is really good, because it will make you grow up instantly, I think. And be open, because though the world is full of horrible people and good people, but you will be lucky you could find the good people. So you may be the good people. Absolutely. So don't be afraid, and go for it. I think, that's it. Go for it.
That's beautiful tip to all the viewers, and I'm sure everybody has enjoyed thoroughly the conversation, especially your talks. I am sure you're doing very well there. Hope your family is doing well in India, and we wish you tons of success ahead. You have chosen a path which is definitely less traveled, but I'm sure that is the one which is going to make difference. So tons of best wishes to you. India misses you for sure, but you're miles away, but I'm sure you're going to make India proud. You're a true brand ambassador for India over there. So tons of wishes, Swati, and do lots of adventurous things in your career. All right.
Thank you so much, Prayag. Thank you so much. I have to say thanks to the advice. I mean, I am really, really honest about it. I'm not even trying to put on a face or something, but I'm really, really honest. I wouldn't have been here without you or the advisory team. That's very, very honest. I mean, no, that's really the truth. I mean, why do I want to lie? No, that's really the truth.
No,
yeah.
I think you're being modest. You're there because of all the tips that you gave to all the viewers, you actually made the most of those tips yourself. So you were in leadership position. You were open about your thoughts. You were an ambitious girl, and that's why you're there. So well done, congratulations, and best of luck.
Thank you so much. And all the best to you guys as well.
Thank you. And for all the viewers who are watching this, we are going to, if we may, if Swati can share her LinkedIn URL, we would post her LinkedIn URL in the description. So if you want to have a chat with Swati or want to know about top business schools in France, the application process, please connect with Swati. Don't bug her, but maybe you can definitely drop some messages to her if you want to know more about studying in France. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Swati. God bless you. Take care.
Thank you so much.